Well, it's time to get started back up again. Track and field practice begins this week, tomorrow, weather permitting. We'll start off about 3 days a week here in early February and move to 4 days a week by the end of the month. Um, some things to note about practice. If, first of all, if school is closed due to the weather, then I will send out a message to the athletes and post on Facebook or and Twitter if practice is going to be on as scheduled or if it's going to be canceled. A lot of that will depend on the weather and the road conditions, that afternoon. I always tell athletes in track and field specifically to be prepared for various types of weather. Now, in early February, we're usually in the weight room quite a bit, but if we get a warmer day, there's a good chance that we'll head outside. The general rule of thumb that I use in track is if it's below 40, we're going to stay inside. If it's above 40, we may be inside, but that gives us an opportunity to get outside. So dress for the weather, dress for the cooler weather. They need to be prepared to work out indoors or outdoors. So just important for them to be ready for different environments. Basketball players, the general rule has always been this: you can attend track and field practice if it does not conflict with basketball. So just like in the fall with cross country, if you're a cross country runner and you play basketball, you're permitted to go to basketball practice when it didn't conflict. That's the same here. But obviously the in-season sport is basketball, and that does come first. Reminder about sports physicals. Everyone needs to have an updated sports physical from within the last year. So if you played a fall sport, then you're going to be in good shape. But if you haven't done anything since maybe, track or last year or planning to do a spring sport last year that we didn't get to do, then your physical may be out of date and may need to be updated. Still working on putting together the meet schedule. I feel like the meets are rolling out a little slower this year. I guess just everyone apprehensive about COVID-19. But as of right this moment, our first meet is March 27th, and the region looks to be the last weekend of May. Talking about March 27th being the first meet, that's now less than 2 months away. It was actually 2 months or 8 weeks from yesterday. And that's really important for our basketball players to think about because they're going to have limited opportunities to come and practice with us. Just the way that it is most years, and especially this year, every day there's either seems like almost every day of the week there's a ball game or there's practice. Well, if there's a game in the evening, then that means the basketball practice is going to be after school, which is when our practices are in February. So it's very likely that if a team makes the regional tournament, even the week of our first meet, they could still be playing basketball. So it's really important that athletes try to find a way, or basketball players specifically, find a way on their own to get their runs in. And that's got to be strategic sometimes when it's going to at least have an impact on the sport that they're doing. That may mean they have to get up early, before school and get a run in. But it's just really important that they understand the timeline and that, unlike cross country when they came in and had 6 weeks of practice before the first race, that's not really going to be the case for them. So we just want them to be prepared. Obviously, they're going to be in general athletic shape, but there is a difference in that and running shape. So something for them to think about and to, work that strategically into their weekly schedule to get, at least probably 3 days a week of running in here in February. Of course, we want to talk about COVID-19 a little bit. There are still a lot of modifications and adjustments that will be made to practices. So I mentioned us being in the weight room quite a bit. Masks will need to be worn in the weight room when we're working out. The exception will be if we're on the treadmill. So if an athlete's on a treadmill, they can take off the mask to run. I don't want to make them run in the mask, but just for the general weight training, they will keep masks on for that. If we happen to practice outside, then when they arrive to practice, they need to have the mask on, and we'll have them remove that before we actually start our outdoor workout. I did want to touch on middle school track and field just a little bit, in case anyone is watching that had heard about that, or maybe their kids have talked about it. We've never had a true middle school track and field program before. We've, of course, had seventh grade and up because seventh and eighth graders can participate on the varsity team. That is allowed by the state. So that seventh grade has been the lowest grade that we've allowed to do track and field because we haven't had an actual middle school team. Part of that is because unlike cross country, where you can go to a meet and typically have elementary, middle school, and high school races all on the same day, or at the very least, you can have middle school and high school races the same day. That's not the way it is with track. Very, very rarely, and I'm talking maybe a meet in the whole season or two, where you could go to a meet and it would be both middle school and high school. So the problem it would have been that would have required us to, have almost a totally different schedule with middle school, different days, and with limited staff. That would have been difficult to pull off. However, we are seriously considering adding a middle school team this year. We've already met with fifth grade, and we had, I think, 4 kids that were there. There were only 9 kids, I think, in the class that day, but 4 kids that signed up as interested. And we're going to meet with sixth grade and fourth grade this coming week. And what that will look like, plan to start practices March 1st, and it will probably go through mid-May. So it would not be a very long season, just a couple of months really. They wouldn't have a whole lot of meets or competitions. Bracken County is hosting 2 meets, actually, and then they're hosting the Buffalo Trace, which is usually at Mason or Bracken. So that would be 3 close meets that we could take them to, and that would really be the extent of their season. But we thought it would be a good way to get athletes interested early on and let them see early on the differences between track and field and cross country, because I feel like a lot of our athletes or our students who don't know think that track and field maybe is just the same thing as cross country, just it's in a different time of the year, and that obviously that's not the case. With the sprinting options, with the throwing options, the jumping options, there are just more possibilities in track and field than there are in cross country. So trying to maybe expand that down to our middle school grades a little bit, and increase our numbers as we get some of these kids going from the younger grades to high school. I think that's all I had for today. Just wanted to get some basic information out there with the season starting this week. Looking forward to getting back into it. Coming off of a successful cross country season, hopefully that will translate into some successful track experiences for our athletes. We'll probably check back in a few weeks to let everyone know how the season planning is going. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing everyone this week.